We are in session 42, part 1, and here today we're going to talk about balancing the self. Let's begin. Today's session is a really important one because we're getting a lot of practical stuff in terms of how we deal with ourselves and the environment, the external world, our life in general. So a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about here is very relevant to our day-to-day life and our perception of ourselves in this spiritual path, which is the understanding and knowing of the self. If you can remember, anything that Ra says is to know yourself. And this is not only Ra, but every other teacher tells you, any other guru, any other master will tell you, know yourself, know thyself. So that's why to me this session, or at least this first part, is so important, because it's going to go deep into all of these mechanisms of action. And this is going to bring me to one of the important points that I need to make clear before we start. But the first one, before we get into this, is that we're talking about, say, a system that we all have. All humans have this system of reacting to situations, reacting to experiences, and the catalyst that brings with it. But this inevitably evokes a feeling for the student, and I know it because I have felt it myself, and I continue to deal with that feeling, that when you see yourself unbalanced, because a master tells you or a teacher tells you, you have imbalances, there's a natural reaction right away. And speaking of reactions and catalyst, to feel that there's something wrong with you, you're missing something, you're missing a part of you, that you're incomplete, or something to that effect. You get the idea. And this is just not an appropriate way of seeing these teachings. These teachings are not here to tell you that you are broken and that you need, fixing for some reason. It shows you how to deal with life. It shows you how to process experiences in a way that it's helpful for you for your growth. You see, growth is probably a great word here, because you don't grow to reach a specific height. See, you grow because that's just your capacity of enhancement. And your capacity of enhancement, spiritual enhancement, is measured by your growth. And so your growth is dependent on this, but you don't have to reach a specific point. The point is to reach infinity, and it's not, the idea of the creation is not to reach infinity right away. It's like what Alan Watts used to say, the purpose of music is not reaching the end, of the song or of the play. Otherwise, the best composers would be the ones that reach the end in just one note or something like that. The purpose of creation is to know yourself in the situation you are in. So this is a very important introduction point for me to start talking about this, because I don't want anybody who's listening to me to feel that they're broken because they are going to inevitably see that they have imbalances in themselves, or they're not approaching reality in the mystical view, or in this case the interdimensional view of the creation, in the ways that it's actually meant to be. Okay, so this is why we're learning with this, and just don't have that with you. Okay, now the second point is that we're gonna enter very unstable territory here when it comes to understanding how this is a mechanism, because the word mechanism in our language means that there is a machine that has parts, and that we ought to pay attention to specific parts of it, and it's a very mechanistic view of it. So I guess this is more like an organism. I think that's a better word. The organism of growth or balancing is that which we're going to discuss, and it's not good to emphasize ourselves into specific things, as again, it's kind of attached to the previous point that I made, and that as we go through it, we're gonna find several points that I'm gonna make note of it, and whenever I can. The other thing also is that this is my interpretation, of course. This is something that makes sense to me. There's a lot of simplification in terms of the nuances that we can get into, but if anything, what I'm trying to say is this is a field of study that is experiential rather than parts in a machine. It's very experiential because, as you will see, it depends on anything. So whatever we see here is not like the commandments or it's a guideline to go through. It's your experiences that tell you. So I hope this is a good introduction to make clear everything that we're going to talk about here. And, just take it as always, just see what resonates and reject what doesn't. And that doesn't mean that what you reject is wrong. It's just that you may not be ready for that, or you may not be in fully understanding of these concepts, and that's fine. You kind of like, you wet your feet before you get into the water. You try the waters first. It doesn't mean that you can't get into the water. It's just that you're taking time to do things. So in any case, very, very deep session here, at least the first part that I chose. I'm hoping to get at least half of it, but if I go over the hour and I still see that there's more, I'll stop it there and we'll see. But I want to do the balancing questions before we get into the other stuff in this session. So I don't think I have anything else to say and get into the introduction. If anything, I'll just go through with the flow, and whatever I read that makes sense to emphasize, I'll say it then. But the session starts with Don asking right away. It's a rather long question. Actually, it's the second question, but we'll get into that. What I'm saying is that there's no book 5 kind of thing that was mixed here or taken out. We're going straight into how the session started in March 22nd, 1982, I believe, is when this session was channeled. So we're going to go into Don's first question, where he says, I have a question on balancing. It's quite long, and we'll copy it directly into the book as it is. If you can answer it without me reading it, it would save time. Otherwise, I will read it. And so Don is just asking, can you read my mind as opposed to me reading this long question, which it is a long question. But Ra is going to say, we understand your desire to preserve your opportunity. However, a summary of the query would be well, for if we answer a mentally requested query, this query shall not be published. If you wish this answer to be for private use only, we shall proceed. So one just little point here. Actually, a couple of things. One is that Don just wanted to save time, and Ra always reads Don's mind or knows more than they're not just listening. They are aware of the whole situation. They're aware of the question. They're aware of Don's mind and everything else. There is a merging happening there. So they say, it's like, we understand that you want to, save time, basically. However, a summary of the query would be, enough. And if we answer, mentally, then this question shall not be published, meaning I guess that the question that they'll answer is not going to be published because it's not the same, maybe what Don's reading, or I don't think they meant that it shouldn't be published. That's not the way they speak. I think what they meant was that this question would not be published, the question that they answer mentally. So they had to state it for it to be, fully there. And if they wanted to private, for private use only, then great, but at this point, Ra knew that they were creating books, for this. So maybe that did mean that, shall not be published that way. I don't know. In any case, this is also a question that was not included in the first original books, nor in book 5, actually. This is a question that was first published in the re-listen version that was published in 2018, I think, by Toby Willock. And actually, shout out to Toby Willock, who I contacted recently. If you don't know who Toby Willock is, he's the author of lawofone.info, where you get, it's just a phenomenal website. If you're studying the law of one, you have to visit this website, and you have to check all his work. So anyhow, shout out to him, because I contacted him. They recently made a change in the website, so they have like different versions of light, dark, the theme now, that you can put the color dark, and the letters white and so on. It's just easier for reading, and other versions. But I didn't like that they the highlighted questions that were in book 5, which again, it was Toby Willock's work to include everything. That's why it's called the re-listen version, because he included everything from the original books, and as it was channeled, he listened to every one of them, the recordings, and transcribed everything perfectly. So some of those questions were taken out for different reasons, and this question is one of them. This question was not published in any of the books, but is part of the re-listen project, along with other ones. Another one I can remember is when Don asked about the dinosaurs, and there are others that will come in the near future, but I'll leave that. There's one that is very important, and you can see why they didn't even put it in book 5, because it's very controversial, but we'll get to that. I think it's session 50 something. In any case, shout out to him, because the highlight used to be in blue for those questions, the questions and answers in book 5, and they changed it to gray, so it looked kind of hard to spot. So I emailed him, and within the hour he responded to me that he was going to change it, and within the day he changed it. So what an amazing guy Toby Willock is. He's on top of his stuff, and he has such a love, devotion, and passion for this, as probably most of us all are when it comes to the raw material. So yeah, thank you. And yeah, that's all I wanted to say. So this question, thanks to Toby Willock, we have it, otherwise we wouldn't have it. And it also shows how Ra wanted to preserve, say, the pristine or purity of the channeling and the questions and the answers that they gave. So, all right, here we go for Don's question, which is actually very long. I'll just read it. As he say, I will just read it very rapidly. The question then. I'm going to make a statement and ask you to comment on its degree of accuracy. I am assuming that the balanced entity would not be swayed either towards positive or negative emotions by any situation which he might confront. By remaining unemotional in any situation, the balanced entity may clearly discern the appropriate and necessary responses in harmony with the law of one for each situation. Most entities on our planet find themselves unconsciously caught up into every emotional situation which they come into contact with according to their own unique biases, and because of these biases are unable to see clearly, teach learning opportunities and appropriate response in each emotional situation, and must therefore, through a process of much trial and error and enduring of resulting pain, repeat such situations many times until they become consciously aware of the need to balance their energy centers, and thusly their responses and behaviors. Once a person becomes consciously aware of the need to balance their energy centers and responses, the next step is to allow the appropriately positive or negative responses to emotional situations to flow smoothly through their being without retaining any of the emotional coloration after it has been consciously observed and allowed to flow through the being. Last part, where Don says, and I am assuming that this ability to consciously observe the positively or negatively charged energy flowing through the being may be augmented by practice of the balancing exercises you have given us, with the result in balance being achieved for the entity, which would allow him to remain unemotional and undistorted in regards to the law of one in any situation, much like the objective viewer of the television movie. Is this correct? Alright, so I'm going to take a little pause here and kind of summarize what Don was asking here. Without getting into all the verbose question that Don had, Don is kind of on point in terms of how these different aspects of our emotions and our perceptions of experience and the catalyst that brings in. So he's getting all of those concepts right, mixed together. However, you can see that Don is trying to create a guideline. And like I said in the introduction, this is not the appropriate way of doing things, because there is no guideline. It's just knowing how things work in reality and then experiencing yourself or experimenting yourself with life. That's what life is about, taking experience and experimenting with it. So that's what Don is saying, in terms of how a balanced entity would react to situations and to allow the energies, positive or negative, into itself without being swayed by them and all this stuff. Now, Ra is going to explain, it's going to say that this is an incorrect way of also applying the balancing exercises, which the one that comes to mind, they have given, different exercises. The balancing exercise, I believe, was to find the opposite of everything. And this is a great way of actually seeing your life. It's not only helpful when you have a negative emotion in you to find the appropriate balance emotion, which would be, happiness if you're depressed or sad, or seeing, when something is, it's wrong, then look at the right thing, and try to balance both. Know that both are actually, this is polarity. This is seeing the love in polarity, or the attraction in polarity, because polar opposites actually attract each other, so that attraction is love. So that's how I see it anyways. I know people see it differently, but that's how I see it. So in the balancing exercise, what you're doing is finding the love. It's not to find the other one, but to find the love that is in between them and actually try to center yourself there. So that is the balancing exercise. So again, if you got the question, if not, just reread it, because that's what, I'm paraphrasing Don, when I say that, that's what he was doing. He was grabbing, all the, how does the balanced person reacts to emotional charged situations and stuff like that. So just go back, listen to it again, or read it, and I'm just going to go into Ra's answer, because that's what's going to give us the real deal. So Ra says in question 2, session 42, this is an incorrect application of the balancing which we have discussed. The exercise of first experiencing feelings and then consciously discovering their antithesis within the being has as its objective not the smooth flow of feelings, but both positive and negative, while remaining unswayed, but rather the objective of becoming unswayed. This is a simpler result and takes much practice, shall we say. So, you see, here's the first thing. And this is one of the wrong assumptions from Don. And that is that, it's not about becoming unswayed while feeling positive or negative. What do they call it? Feelings? Yeah, feelings of positive and negative. And remaining unswayed, it doesn't bother me. I felt the positive feeling or the negative feeling, and I'm feeling unswayed or, unaffected. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do, the balancing is, the result of the balancing exercise is that you become unswayed, simply unswayed. There is no positive or negative. You just become, this is what it would be the work of the adept, the work of sixth density, the work of indigo ray. You are working by having no polarity, by having no positive or negative influencing you. And this is a question I actually got recently, asking about if, why Ra is positive, something to that effect. And I had to emphasize that Ra is not positive, nor are they negative. They are in sixth density. There is no polarity there. So they do acknowledge and see that the negative path is the path of illusion, and the positive path is a path of truth, because we are one. And if you realize that in third density, or in fifth, or in sixth, then, that doesn't make it untrue that you lived a lie, So that's why it's called the path of truth, because we realize early on in third density that we are one, whereas the negative path says we are not one. I am. I'm the only one. And so they delude themselves all the way up to sixth density, possibly, to finally realize that yes, we are one. You know, if I want to rule the universe, we have to do it all together. That's what they want to do. So yeah, this is the work that we do here as an analog of the Creator by remaining unswayed. And we're going to get on that. You know, this whole video is going to be about it. So that is the purpose. That is the objective, becoming unswayed. And that doesn't mean, as we're going to see, repressing, you know, or becoming, just putting aside our emotions. You know, I can't get the word right, but it's not about that. It's about doing the work so you're not affected by it. You don't feel any positive or negative. You just see things as they are with love. And that's why love is the middle way. It's the center. It is the feeling. The only feeling that it exists is love. Anything else is just an imbalance of love. So Ra says this is simpler results. It is simpler because you actually you know, it's not complicated, basically. It's simple because it's not complicated. Complicated would be to, you know, all right, I'm feeling a positive emotion here, but, you know, positive is just an illusion, so I shouldn't, let me balance it with negative, you know. No. The result of being, you know, unswayed by it is simple, as opposed to this complexity. But like they say, it takes much practice. So, all right, there's more to say here, and I think this is the most important part, possibly of the whole session, where they say the catalyst of experience works in order for the learned teachings of this density to occur. However, if there is seen in the being a response, even if it is simply observed, the entity is still using the catalyst for learned teaching. The end result is that the catalyst is no longer needed. Thus, this density is no longer needed. This is not indifference or objectivity. Indifference was the word that I was looking for. Alright, I repeat. This is not indifference or objectivity, but a finely tuned compassion and love, which sees all things as love. This seeing elicits no response due to catalytic reactions. Thus, the entity is now able to become co-creator of experiential occurrences. This is the truer balance. Yes, beautiful. Alright, so let's dissect this little by little. When they say, the catalyst of experience works in order for the learned teachings of this density to occur. Anything that is an experience has catalyst. And actually, catalyst is the one that brings experience. Okay? It's just that we see experience first, and then we see catalyst. But the more we are in tune with the catalyst that is inevitably intertwined with experience, the more aware we are with that catalyst, and catalyst being, again, a word for accelerating growth. Remember how I said at the beginning, growth being spiritual growth, or just the growth that we have potentially in our beingness, in our self, knowing the self. Then the more we know that catalyst is our learned teachings. And so when they say the catalyst of experience works in order for the learned teachings of this density to occur, those catalysts are here because we need to learn. And learn teachings, of course, there's no learning without teachings, and there's no teaching without learning. So if there is, so that is the premise. That is, you know, why things are happening to us. That is what brings emotional reactions from us. That is what elicits emotional reactions from us. You know, the experience, whatever it may be. You know, it could be a situation at work or in your house, or you yourself just reflecting on your past. I mean, anything is an experience that it's bringing catalyst to you. You know that it's bringing catalyst because you're feeling emotions. And the emotions are the alarms, the triggers, the hello, I'm here, you know, pay attention to me, what's going on. Those are the emotions. So each one of these concepts, like I said at the beginning, are things that you need to process in your mind to see how you deal with them. This is the experimental part of the whole practice exercise. Okay, so they keep saying, however, if there is seen in the being a response, even if it is simply observed, the entity is still using the catalyst for learned teaching. So if a situation, say you used to react to, I don't know, your dog waking you up in the morning very early, or, yes, let's just go with that. And you have a reaction to it, and you say, why on Saturdays you have to wake me up in the morning, or whatever. You have that reaction. And then, over time you say like, okay, it's just my dog, it's Saturday, he doesn't know, she doesn't know, let me go take him out, whatever. But you still, now you're more accepting of, the situation. But you're still having a reaction, right? What do they say? You see a response of the experience of the catalyst. Then, even if it's simply observe, and this is also, you can see this with the ego, or at least what I call, the ego echo, that sometimes, say you used to judge, some group of people, whatever they may be, and you say, oh, they're just, arrogant people, or whatever, and you judge them. And you realize that I shouldn't be judging them. So now you're becoming more accepting of your own feelings of judgment. And, you don't judge them anymore. However, every time you see them, you get a response to that. And you say, it may be something subtle. That means that the catalyst is still working on you. That means that you still need to pay attention to what's happening. Now, that doesn't mean that you, like I said at the beginning, you don't have to beat yourself because, you haven't seen that catalyst. Oh my God, it's still coming. That's the echo that I call the ego echo that is still talking to you. It's fine. All you need to do is observe it, see what's happening, balance it, and keep working on it. Eventually, you will become unswayed. So, see, when they say the end result is that the catalyst is no longer needed. Catalyst being that that manifestation in reality, in your reality, it's all in your mind. It's not really out there. It's not an energy that is out there. All energy is for your entertainment, for your purposes. So catalyst will cease to exist. It's not that it's no longer needed and it still exists. No, it just doesn't exist anymore. So your dog waking up in the morning, guess what? You're happy now to go take him out, and that's fine. It's not eliciting any sort of response. It's just natural. It's like it's raining. There's no catalyst there. Unless you hate rain for some reason, then there is catalyst. But something superfluous that may be happening, that is, it's not a catalyst to you. So they say, thus this density is no longer needed. That is right. This density, for the catalyst that we're experiencing here. This is not indifference or objectivity. See, indifference would be to say, all right, no, I shouldn't be. I got pissed because my dog woke me up. No, I'm not gonna get pissed. I'm not gonna fall into that. I'm clever, I'm smart. And that is objectivity too. Objectivity being like, this is what's happening. I know what's happening, so I shouldn't pay attention to that because my teachings tell me that I shouldn't. And believe me, a lot of people are falling into this trap of, and this is one of them. When I say a lot of people, I've been included there, and I probably am a victim of this too. And that's fine. That is my catalyst too. But it's not to be objective and to reject the catalyst. It's just to become aware of it. So they say this is not indifference or objectivity, okay, but a finely tuned compassion and love which sees all things as love. Simple. If you see that you're being pushed to one side, whether that be extreme happiness or depression or sadness or anger or whatever, then that there is a balancing happening or potential balancing to happen. And that is compassion and love which sees all things as love. Simple as that. This reality is not complicated. This reality is just, the thing is that the ego gets in itself and it gets in the way. That's basically what's happening. We have these reactions to condition situations. And all we need to do is pay attention to those reactions. And that's it. Sounds simple, but I know, like they said, it's not. This seeing elicits no response due to catalytic reactions, meaning that, the seeing of all things as love elicits no response, no reaction to it, because there is no catalyst, basically. Thus, the entity is now able to become co-creator of experiential occurrences. This is the truer balance. So let me go into something that it's going to be helpful for the rest of the video. You see, people, person. A person is a character. A person is a persona. Persona is a character. Is not a true. It's not a real being. It's not an entity on its own. It's ego. So the more we are into that mindset and trying to work backwards, the longer it's going to get. So that's why, for me, the best teachings that I've got in my life is the I am. Who am I? Who truly am I? If I can't answer that question, then I cannot understand reality, because I don't even know who I am. When you realize through the study, or the realization rather, of who you are, then you can start working from the inside out. And from the inside out, you know that you are God, that you are the creator, that you are everything that is, you are the universe. And now, working this way for catalysts and experiences, you can see that it's not that you need to work from the ego to the creator. It's that you are the creator and the ego doesn't exist. So you can now perceive reality as just one big thing that you have no idea what's going on, but you are it. You're just this tiny, it's almost like you get down to play with the kids. It's a game, it's not real, and you don't have to be logical, you don't have to bring rules to the games. You're playing with a baby, you're playing with babies, literally. This is, in terms of densities of consciousness, this is baby reality. This is the, and babies have no responsibilities. Babies have no problems. I mean, babies simply act. This is why enlightened beings often look like they're babies, and that's not to say immature. It's just that they enjoy life like mature babies. Let's put it that way. And if we can strengthen that point of view that everything really is you, everything that's happening is not affecting you because you are everything. So you can't be affecting yourself. What you're affecting is the ego, or the ego is feeling hurt. So, I mean, there's a lot to go into this, but the truer balance is to be, like they say, you become a co-creator when you see that, you cannot understand anything. This is not the density of understanding, Ra says. Rightly so. All you need to do is experience things and see where is the love here. How can I find balance and love here? So there's so much to say here, but I really want to finish half of this session before I get into my own philosophies. All right, so Don says in question 3, I will attempt to make an analogy. If an animal, shall I say a bull in a pen, attacks you because you have wandered into his pen, you get out of his way rapidly, but you do not blame him. Or, you do not have much of an emotional response other than the fear response that he might damage you. However, if you encounter another self in his territory and he attacks you, your response may be more of an emotional nature, creating physical bodily responses. Am I correct in assuming that when your response to the animal and to the other self, seeing both as the creator and loving both and understanding their action in attacking you, is the action of their free will, then you have balanced yourself correctly in this area? Is this correct? Ra says, this is basically correct. However, the balanced entity will see in the seeming attack of another self the causes of this action, which are, in most cases, of a more complex nature than the cause of the attack of the second density bull, as was your example. Thus, this balanced entity would be open to many more opportunities for service to a third density other self. So, Don is putting a good example here, and it's still mechanistic in a way. Because it is, alright, a second density animal attacks me. I have very little emotional attachments to a bull, or to a cow, or a bison, or a dinosaur, I don't know, a monster, whatever it is. You know, you have no reactions to it. It's just like, oh my god, you know, it's gonna kill me. I'm out of the way. Okay, save myself. I don't put emotions on the animal. However, the other person, I may put emotional reactions to it. And so, you know, when you're balanced in both ways, that you just see, you know, things. And that's why Ross says, you know, this is basically correct in the sense that, yeah, when you have no emotional reactions to the individual, in this case, the other self, the other human being, then you are, you know, balanced, of course. But see what they're saying. However, the balanced entity will see in the seeming attack of another self the causes of this action, which are in most cases of a more complex nature than the animal. Because you see that a human, for it to attack you, has a more conscious, in most cases, of course, because you can just have a feral, you know, individual, which is not very common, you know, just talking about somebody that lives in the woods or in the jungle and sees you and, you know, reacts just like an animal. Maybe it doesn't know you, but in somebody in a typical scenario, or you know, in a case scenario where you're at work or at home or your neighbor, or, you know, driving, whatever, you know, you have more of a, because you have a sort of assumption of what the person should be. And there's a lot, it's a very complex nature. So somebody who is not very balanced would, you know, project itself into the other person and say, like, why this guy cut me off? You know, can he see that I'm, you know, in a rush to get to work, or, you know, I gotta go get my kids or whatever? Or why does this person reacts to me this way? You know, I'm working for him or for her. You know, why does my wife treat me this way? You know, there's a lot of projection going on there, and that begs for balance, because you are essentially reflecting yourself in the other person. That's what's happening. Whereas the balanced person simply sees that there is a more complex reaction of the other person, which is in itself projecting herself onto you. So you don't have to, you know, understand anything. You know, you just have to, and when I mean understand in the deep nature, all you need to understand is that there's something going on there that you have no idea. That's what I mean. You know, you understand that there's something going on that you don't understand. But you see that there is love, because all actions are based in love. So I know that's a hard concept sometimes for people to say, like, well, where's the love in people, you know, trying to manipulate me, or the government doing this, or, you know, my neighbor or my boss or whatever. Well, you have to balance it. You have to find it, you know, because there is love. They are begging for love. All actions are love seeking or love giving. So that's just the nature of it. So, all right. So they say, thus this balanced entity would be open to many more opportunities for service to a third density other self. This is the balanced entity that sees more opportunities, because when I used to be upset because my mom used to, scold me for whatever I used to do, or my behaviors, and I used to have an emotional reaction to it because she didn't understand me. She didn't understand who I was, and she was just being, you know, selfish. Over time, what I discovered was that my mom was reacting in a more complex way because of her upbringing. And now without understanding, you know, the nuances into why she would react that way, I would just understand that there was a very complex behavior in her that would just react that way. And thus, I can see now the possibility of not reacting emotionally, but being of service to her and seeing how can I dispel that, or help to dispel, you know, to bring that aha moment in her of realization of saying, like, well, actually, you're right. You know, you shouldn't. There's no reason for you to, you know, to do or not do this. You know, you have your own authority and your own responsibilities. Whatever. You know, you are more in an opportunity to be of service to other people, because now you're balanced and you're not being triggered by these emotions. Hope that makes sense. So Don says, question 4: would a perfectly balanced entity feel an emotional response when being attacked by the other self? Ra says, this is correct. The response is love. I don't think I need to. I'm gonna carry this over to the next question. Don says, in the illusion that we now experience, it is difficult to maintain this response, being love, especially if the entity's attack results in physical pain. But I assume that this response should be maintained even through physical loss of life or extreme pain. Is this correct? Once again, see, let me carry over the question. So, in the balanced entity, there is only one response, which is the feeling of love, compassion. Much like, let me put it this way, your boss yelling at you and telling you, you are a mess and you should be, be disciplined, whatever, trying to make you feel less, trying to belittle you, which, you may obviously react as, in frustration or anger. And I mean, there's so much we can pick out of an example like this, but just for the purpose of seeking the love there, or seeing the love, you see, it's the same reaction that you would have of a kid, that wants to keep playing. Maybe your son or your daughter, it's playing a video game and it's late at night and they need to go to sleep, and you say, like, enough, I'm sorry I have to do this to you, but you gotta take, and they start calling you, names and saying you're, a terrible father, you don't understand them, blah blah blah, but all you see is the lack of understanding of your child, that they need to go to sleep, that they can't be, those, whatever your thinking ways. You can see the same feeling of compassion. You wouldn't feel frustrated with your child. I mean, you could, but normally you would feel a sense of compassion, of trying to make him understand. But you can't, so you just have to let him be. The same reaction is potentially available for your boss there. Just seeing the person with, all right, I know you're frustrated in life for some reason. I mean, see, I'm putting words in people's minds. That's not right. Whatever it may be, you find compassion on your boss in this scenario. And so that is, that's what Don is asking here, bringing that mechanistic view, like saying, so we have to, we have to maintain. The word here that he used that I'm not too keen with is when he says, in the illusion that we now experience, so this third density, it is difficult to maintain this response of love, especially if the entity's attack results in physical pain. But I'm assuming that even if, if it's death or extreme pain, we must maintain love. And that is not true. Now, Ra is going to say, this is correct and further is of a major or principal importance in understanding, shall we say, the principle of balance. Balance is not indifference, but rather the observer not blinded by any feelings of separation, but rather fully imbued with love. So you see, here, what Ra is saying is that it is correct in the balanced entity, but it's not correct for us to apply it. See, the balanced entity does not maintain this as and this is the key difference. This is why I'm nitpicking this, because the balanced entity does not make an effort to maintain the reaction of love. The balanced entity simply feels love for everything. The balanced entity doesn't see a separation or an imbalance in anything. They know that everything is balanced as it is, and so there is no need for them to call emotional reactions. Like, this is not, and it's not a willing act either. It's just how the balanced entity is. The balanced entity is crystalline. What does that mean? That light flows without being colored or being refracted or being distorted. It just flows through. It's a clear lens. What does that mean? Then there's no effort to maintain or do anything. See, this is why the Chinese or the Taoists would call Wu Wei, no effort or effortless ways of acting, no forcing, that kind of thing. You simply flow with nature and know that things are the way they are. And so when Ra says that this is correct, is that the balanced entity will maintain, not willingly, but maintain because of its nature. Okay, just like water maintains its course, not by will, not by force, but simply because it is water, and it'll flow and it'll go through the path of least resistance. Whatever you put on top, it's going to go through the easiest way. That's just water. Be like water. And funny enough, water is related to emotions. Let the emotions flow like water and you'll be fine. We're going to get into that too. The flowing of emotions. All right. So Ra says also, it is of a major or important or principal importance in understanding the principle of balance. Balance is not indifference. See, it's not saying, okay, I just not to pay attention to my emotions, but rather the observant not blinded by any feelings of separation, but rather fully imbued with love. Exactly what I said, with the person that is balanced, that sees everything with love. So that's what they mean there. Very Buddhist, this is. Don says, question 6. In the last session, you made the statement that we, that is Ra, spend much time space in the 5th density, balancing the intense compassion gained in 4th density. Could you expand on this concept with respect to what we were just discussing? Ra says, the 4th density, as we have said, abounds in compassion. This compassion is folly when seen through the eyes of wisdom. It is the salvation of the 3rd density, but creates a mismatch in the ultimate balance of the entity. Oh, I'm going to go back to this. Ra says, thus we, as a social memory complex of 4th density, had the tendency towards compassion, even to martyrdom, in aid of other selves. When the 5th density harvest was achieved, we found that in this vibratory level, flaws could be seen in the efficacy of such unrelieved compassion. We spent much time space in contemplation of those ways of the Creator which imbue love with wisdom. So now here we have, we're going a little circle here, and I think this is important. You see, in the previous questions, Don was going what it's called wisdom over love. Wisdom being, let me find a way in which I can logically structure this. And it's not that it's wrong, it's just that it's more wisdom than love. So there is an imbalance. There's a lot of blue and a dimmer green here. In Don's ways of, and Don was very analytic, he was very blue to me. He was very wisdom over love, in balance. So it's finding the structure and not seeing the feeling side of it, the loving part of it as much. I'm not saying that Don wasn't a loving person, of course. I'm saying that there was an imbalance into trying to use more wisdom over love, and that is the result of it. So, you try to find specific ways, and I mean, I relate to it because I know I have a wisdom over love in balance as well. That's just my view, and I see how my mind always tries to put things into little boxes so I can feel in control, that I can feel safe, I can feel, in that way that everything is structured. But that is helpful. However, you need to allow for things to get all mixed together. That is the, it's matter is wave and particle, right? So, you have to accept both. You can't just be particles. We of the wisdom over love are very particle oriented. Love is very wavy. It's just that flow of things. So that we saw from the previous questions, how Don was very blue over green. Now we're seeing green over blue, which is Ra. And what they said in the last session, that they had to spend a lot of time in 5th density because they were very, very unbalanced in terms of love. So that's why they say the 4th density, as we have said, abounds in compassion. And this can be also related to our 4th energy center, the green heart, green energy center, the heart chakra, right? Love and compassion. It can also be felt here, just like I'm saying, like they were in 4th density, they were abounding, with love, whereas, when they went to 5th, they realized that they had a lot to learn, literally. So, we can see that in us too. There's a lot of people who are very green oriented. They're very, to the point of martyrdom, like they said. So, This compassion is folly when seen through the eyes of wisdom. See, when this excessive compassion is seen as folly from the eyes of wisdom, you can't be all loving. So you see, you can't be all loving and you can't be all wisdom. You have to find wisdom and love balance, and that is the work of sixth density. Of course, you learn first green, then you learn blue, and you balance the two. So they say it is the salvation of the third density, but creates a mismatch in the ultimate balance of the entity. Meaning that, of course, the salvation of third density is to see everything with love, see everything with compassion. That's why they say this is not the density of understanding. However, you can still practice your understanding here and, create wisdom when you see too much imbalance in love. So it's better to be in balance here in this density, have a huge imbalance in love, and then kind of balance it with wisdom, than to be in balance with love, with wisdom, and try to balance it with love. So it's a way of seeing this. That's why they say, the salvation of third density. I would say the liberation, not salvation. I don't like the word salvation, but liberation of third density is, finding the love in everything. And then don't worry, you're gonna have time to balance your love. But it's it does create a mismatch, like they say, in the ultimate balance of the entity. So it doesn't hurt to balance your love, especially when you see yourself too much in the martyrdom, in your martyrdom ways, like just giving too much love. So maybe balance it a little bit. It's not a bad thing. So what else did they say? They said we as a social memory complex of fourth density had the tendency towards compassion, to martyrdom, of course, in aid of others. When the fifth density harvest was achieved, we found that in this vibratory level flaws could be seen the efficacy of such unrelieved compassion. So in the vibratory levels of fifth density, they could find the efficacy of unrelieved compassion. So they could work that, basically. They in essence balance their love. We spend much time, space in contemplation of those ways of the Creator which imbue love with wisdom. Of course, it's just the Creator is not just all loving. The Creator, for the purpose of the creation to work, needs to have wisdom over the love here, or imbue, not over love. They have love being imbued with wisdom, basically. So that's what they found there. That's what we can still find here, especially for people. So there's two beings here, who are beyond yellow ray, or they are balancing love and wisdom. Some of them are very love, very green, and others are very blue, very wisdom, very wise, and intellectual. So one can help the other, and that's why you see also, this is why, when, I'm not sure if this is what they say, find the right partner, whatever. This is one of the things that you find, that you always find somebody who's very loving and compassionate and caring with you and very cloying, and then there is the other part that is, very structured and organized and takes care of the economy and all this stuff. So that's what match is, and you're seeing the creation itself, just finding, it's like hydrogen and oxygen getting together to create water. It's these two things attracted. So anyhow, we're going very long here. So we have another analogy from Dunn. Question 7, he says, I would like to try to make an analogy for this in third density. Many entities here feel great compassion toward relieving the physical problems of third density, other selves, by administering to them in many ways, bringing them food if there is hunger, as there is in the African nations now. 1981. Bringing them medicine if they believe they require administering to them medically, and being selfless in all of those services to a very great extent. This is creating a polarization of a vibration that is in harmony with green ray or fourth density. However, it is not balanced with the understanding of fifth density that these entities are experiencing catalysts at a more balanced administration to their needs would be to provide them with the learning necessary to reach the state of awareness of fourth density than it would be to administer to their physical needs at this time. Is this correct? So this is again a very mechanistic view of Dunn. Ra says this is incorrect. To a mind-body-spirit complex which is starving, the appropriate response is the feeding of the body. You may extrapolate from this. On the other hand, however, you are correct in your assumption that the green ray response is not as refined as that which has been imbued with wisdom. This wisdom enables the entity to appreciate its contributions to the planetary consciousness by the quality of its being, without regard to activity or behavior which expects results upon visible planes. So there's a couple of things here. Don was saying, in essence, like, there's a lot of green ray activity going on with the example that he gives, with poor people basically who are in need of food and medicine. And there are people who are very selfless and go there and administer this food and medicine. Not corporations. I don't know, I just have to mention there. I don't think they're very loving when they do this. I think they're trying to test on, poor people. But that's just my bias. I don't know. I may be alone here, but yeah, we're talking about the people that actually go there and do the work, not the corporations. But yeah, that is a very, that's why I always say, even in the medical industry or even corporations, I mean, there's loving people there, but they're just working with the wrong means, Who used to say, when the wrong people use the right means work in the wrong way. I forgot who said that. If you know, please leave me a comment, because I always forget who says things. But I know this is from I don't know if it was Lao Tse. Lao Tse might have said that. I think it was Lao Tse who said it. In any case, that's just how it works. Anyhow, okay, so yeah, they go, and then Don says, yes, this is the, what he said, I forgot already. See, forgetting stuff. This is creating polarization that is in harmony with green ray. However, it is not balanced with the understanding. So he's trying to understand the balance of wisdom over this, because he says that, the appropriate, the more balanced administration to their needs would be to provide them. So it's almost like, instead of giving them, food and maintain them in that way, it would be more wise and balanced to give them information about, how love is the way. And this misses a huge point, see? Like, it's not about, if the person is starving, I'm just going to give them the law of one. I'm going to recite them the Bible. You feed them. That's what Ra is saying here. And that's why Ra says this isn't correct. To a mind-body-spirit complex, which is starving, the appropriate response is the feeding of the body. So, that's the first step. That's what you do naturally as a human. But they do say you may extrapolate from this. Whatever, from here you can use a lot of stuff. You can take it to different scenarios. So they say, on the other hand, however, you are correct in your assumption that the green ray response is not as refined as that which has been imbued with wisdom. Of course, when you are just acting for love, for the sake of love, without wisdom, then it's not as refined as when it is imbued with love. But it is still, a reaction of love. So we're just nitpicking here with balancing, and not so much practical stuff here. This wisdom enables the entity to appreciate its contributions to the planetary consciousness. See, the wisdom enables the entity to appreciate what they have done for the whole, as opposed to the activity or behavior which expects results upon visible planes. And you don't act anymore for, I'm going to feed you, and I'm going to give you this, and you're going to be fine. I saved you, basically. I'm expecting a result out of this. A wise entity would simply, give you what you need, and that's it. It says that's enough. Now you are, you are you. You keep being you, and I keep being myself, and everything works fine. There is a Zen story. I'll discuss it very briefly, because I think it kind of it illustrates this, especially the no emotional response. There was this Zen priest, or there was a priest, it's a story, I don't know how true it is, but call it, a Zen priest. It was in his temple and whatever, and there was this girl that all of a sudden got pregnant and went home, and told the parents that that the father was the monk, the priest. I forgot what the term is. The Roshi maybe, and the parents were infuriated. How's it this possible? The father being a monk, and they go to the temple and bring the kid, and they say, you got my daughter pregnant. Now you should be responsible of this baby. And the Zen master simply said, "Is that so?" And they left, and the master kept the baby for a couple of years, several years, took care of it, fed him and raised him and the whole thing. And it wasn't until years later that the girl couldn't hold her lie anymore, and she confessed to the parents, like, it was some other kid that she was fooling around with, and she got pregnant. So it wasn't the other, it wasn't the priest or whatever. The parents, and they all went back to the temple, and we're so sorry, we did this, and blah blah blah. The kid is not yours, so we're gonna take him back. And the priest said again, "Is that so?" That's the name of the story. Is that so? With a smile, on his face. There is no emotional reaction there. I mean, it's just like, okay, this is it. Love. Okay, love. Now I apply wisdom. Okay, wisdom then. Like, oh, okay, is that how it is? Okay, I accept reality as it is. It's my baby. Oh, is that not my baby? Okay, great. I have no emotional attachment. I just thought that story was perfect for this. So, anyhow, you're not expecting results in the visible plane when things happen. So, it's 3:33 in the afternoon right now as I tell this story. So let me move on, as we're past the hour. All right, I think I can get to half of this session, so let's do this. Don says, then why do we have the extreme starvation problem generally in the area of Africa at this time? Is there any metaphysical reason for this, or is it purely random occurrence? Ra says, your previous assumption was correct as to the catalytic action of this starvation and ill health. However, it is within the free will of an entity to respond to this plight of other selves. And the offering of the needed foodstuffs and substances is an appropriate response within the framework of your learned teachings as this time, which involved a growing sense of love for and service to other selves. So again, what we're seeing here is Don is asking why this exists then, if this is part of our world right now. I think it's what he said. Why do we have extreme starvation problem in general in Africa? Is there a metaphysical reason for this? Is it purely random? And Ra says that it is a catalytic reaction that it's happening on the world, because it's eliciting, just like the elite that governs our world, it's a catalytic reaction to our school that is happening here. It's a form of how the organism has evolved over time, and it provides this sort of catalyst to us. So that's what we see here in general terms. Now, it is within the free will of anybody, basically, to respond to this plight of other selves, and the offering of the needed, food and medicine, whatnot, is an appropriate response in the framework of your learned teachings at this time, which involves a growing sense of love for and service to other selves. So it is almost like, all right, there is a possibility there. There is a potential for you to go, and this is why I say, the potential for learning, especially at this time in our planet's history, it's huge. We have a huge opportunity for growth right now, for both love and wisdom. And there's so many things to do right now that weren't available, say, 1,000 years ago. 1,000 years ago, you were living in a hut, or in a poor city, or I doubt you were of royal ancestry. Otherwise, you would be probably on the negative path. I'm not saying that all of them are negative, but that is the hierarchical nature of the negative path. In any case, so yeah, you didn't have these opportunities. Now you have. Look at the amount of catalysts or experiences that there are available out there for you to experience, and this is why it's so important to you, for you to become yourself, or for you to let yourself flow. So all those experiences that are meant for you start coming into your life, and you process them, because we have a lot to do here. So potential again, and that is, all of this is catalyst that is available for us in the way, like they say, within the framework of your learned teachings at this time, which involve the growing sense of love for and service for other people. So yeah, all of that is potential for us to show, and not show our love, but just cultivate that love. So Don says, what is the difference in terms of energy center activation between a person who represses emotionally charged responses to emotionally charged situations and the person who is balanced and therefore truly unswayed by emotionally charged situations? Really good question. Ra says, this query contains an incorrect assumption. To the truly balanced entity, no situation would be emotionally charged. With this understood, we may say the following. The repression of emotions depolarizes the entity insofar as it then chooses not to use the catalytic action of the space-time present in a spontaneous manner, thus dimming the energy centers. This is huge because, well, first of all, the incorrect assumption is that there is no situation is emotionally charged. This is the true nature of it. There is no situation that is inherently bad, and this is why you see people fumble. When they tell you, "Aren't you upset that this is happening?" It is obviously upsetting, and you say, "Well, to me it isn't," or you may be the one saying it, and somebody else says like, "No, to me it isn't," and you're like, "What is wrong with you? Why can't you see it?" Because the situation itself is not emotionally charged. It is you who is emotionally charged, and the situation is simply eliciting that response in you. Now you see how this works? This is the true interaction that exists between experience and yourself. You are full of emotions, and experiences are just eliciting those emotions. It's like, if a tree falls in the forest and nobody listens to it, does it emit sound? No, it doesn't, because nobody's there to listen to it. Does it create vibratory patterns in the air? Yes, it does. But those vibrations are not being decoded by any eardrum, so it's not emitting sound. If a blind person never sees the light, was the light there? Well, no. From their perspective, it was never there. They never saw it. So it's the same thing. Emotions are not present outside; they're present inside you. This is also why you create light by looking at it. That is just the interaction, the transaction actually, that exists between a one aspect of reality and you, or the seeming separate you and the outside reality. But you see, you're all one. You are creating the sun, you're creating the moon, you're creating the grass, you're creating people, because you are the one decoding reality. And in the same way, you are decoding situations by emotions or by simply seeing the love in them. So, I forgot the question that Don asked. But he says, okay, what is the difference in terms of energy center activation between a person who represses emotionally charged responses to emotionally charged situations and the person who is balanced? Okay, so yeah, the person who is emotional and the person who is balanced. So Ross says, yes, so there is no situation that is emotionally charged, and especially for the balanced entity, of course, there is no emotionally charged situation, because there is no situation that is emotional. With this understood, we may say the following. The repression of emotions depolarizes the entity insofar as it then chooses not to use the catalytic action of the space-time in a present in a spontaneous manner, thus leaving the energy centers. This is the difference. See, when a person reacts to emotions, or it's indifferent, right? Yes, it's indifferent because it's repressing the emotions. By you repressing your emotions, you are getting into you're enclosing yourself from reality, because reality is begging you to respond emotionally, but you're repressing them, and as you repress them, you avoid the potential energizing or activation of your energy centers, and thus they become dimmer. Because you're not, and this is, the word spontaneous here is so crucial. The words that Ra uses is very, very important, because spontaneous means that you need to think about it. When you think about something, you are repressing to some degree your spontaneous reaction. So, when it comes to emotions, you need to be spontaneous about them, because this is what brings about the analysis of your reactions, of who you are. So it's important for you to let your emotions go. However, there's going to be some clarification here, because you're going to say, wait a minute, do you mean that I just need to react to anybody depending on how I feel? Isn't that, it's going to hurt people if I do this and I do that? And I get this question a lot, and Ra's going to emphasize this specifically, or is going to address this. Okay, so the repressions of emotions depolarizes the entity. Repressions of emotion depolarizes because your polarization depends on how bright your energy centers are balanced together. So if they become dimmer, even if you're balanced, you depolarize yourself to a degree, because even though balance comes first before how activated or bright your energy centers are, if you decrease the brightness of them by repressing emotions, then you may even be unbalanced there, because you may be energizing or activating more your upper energy centers, where your emotional ones are being dimmer. So now you're inviting more imbalance. That's why you should always react as spontaneous as possible. However, there's a big however here. Ra says, there is, however, some polarization towards positive if the cause of this repression is consideration for other selves. The entity which has worked long enough with the catalyst to be able to feel the catalyst but not find it necessary to express reactions is not yet balanced, but suffers no depolarization due to the transparency of its experiential continuum. All right, so see, if your reaction is to repressed emotions because you can harm other people, because you can offend other people, and this is kind of like a little I don't know, it's a little flaky territory here. It's a little, I don't know, it can be I can't find the word, but that doesn't mean, say, if you're gonna hurt somebody, let's just put it this way, if you're gonna hurt somebody emotionally by saying your piece, or hurt somebody by reacting physically, then yes, that repression of emotions, it's going to polarize you slightly positively, because you're considering other people and holding yourself. However, and this is my however, you have to feel, you have to analyze what's going on, because if the person, say, an abusive relationship, it could be a boss, it could be your boyfriend, it could be your friend, it could be anybody, even your parents, I don't know, and it's very abusive, and you allow it because I don't want to hurt them, you may be incurring into a lot of repression of yourself, and you're not allowing yourself to flow. So, there are times where it's important to stand your ground and say, listen, I demand respect, and this is who I am. But see, this is where I'm saying it's kind of like, I can't find the word, but it's like an unbalanced territory. I can't talk about anything specific. So you have to pay attention to this. You just have to be wise here and see when it's important to repress your emotions or not. So, it's an unstable territory. I don't know. I can't find the word. So anyhow, all right. Ra says, the entity which has worked long enough with the catalyst to be able to feel the catalyst but not find it necessary to express reactions is not yet balanced, but suffers no depolarization due to the transparency of its experiential continuum. This is the entity that has worked long enough with the catalyst to be able to feel the catalyst but not find it necessary to express reactions. So, I'm not sure how to put this into context, but the entity who has worked long enough with a catalyst, okay, and is able to feel the catalyst but doesn't find it necessary to express reactions, doesn't actually depolarize, because it's kind of like used to this catalyst, and they know the catalyst, So, the transparency of its experiential continuum is really what doesn't affect the energy centers. Let's just put it that way. To this person, it's not affecting the energy centers because it's not repressing anything. It's just not, there's nothing going on there that it elicits anything important, but it's not yet balanced because it's still feeling some sort of emotion, but it doesn't feel that expressing it is important. I don't know, I really can't find an example for this, but you can figure out somebody who possibly knows the catalyst, but it's just like whatever. I'm not bothered by it. I still have an emotional reaction to it, but I'm not repressing it. It's just I don't find it necessary to express it. All right, Ra continues and says, thus the gradual increase in the ability to observe one's reaction and to know the self will bring the self closer to a true balance. Patience is requested and suggested, for the catalyst is intense upon your plane and its use must be appreciated over a period of consistent learn teaching. So I think I'm going to leave it to here because the next question is going to be, I know I said this in last session, the first part, I left it kind of in the same way as this one, but it is important. Like this next question that comes after this one, it's really huge. But anyhow, let me just finish what Ra says. The gradual increase in the ability to observe one's reaction and to know the self will bring the self ever closer to a true balance. This is really important. It's the gradual increase in the ability to observe one's reaction. See, when the other person who represses the emotion because it's going to hurt somebody else sees the wisdom in it and says, all right, it's not that I'm missing the opportunity to analyze this catalyst because I'm repressing it, but I can still observe it and see how they say the ability to observe one's reactions and to know the self will bring the self ever closer to a true balance, because it's your analysis of yourself expressing the emotions. And there's a thin line here for expressing the emotion physically and verbally to expressing the emotions and feeling them, and knowing that you're feeling the emotion is to observe them. In both cases, you're going to observe them. See, maybe sometimes you need to express them verbally and physically to manifest them and actually see them, but there are times where you can observe yourself and see them and say like, I'm having a sexual response to this, I'm having an anger response to this, I'm having a exhilarating response to this, I'm being excited for the future about this, whatever it is. You are observing your reactions. And so, like I said, there's a thin line here between expressing them because you feel like you need to express them. If you feel you need to express them, then do it. But if you don't feel that you need to express them and you observe them, like the last example that Ra gave of the person who's very familiar with the catalyst at that point, then that's a way to observe it as well. That will bring you to a closer balance if you observe it. Observe yourself. Patience is requested and suggested, for the catalyst is intense upon your plane, and its use must be appreciated over a period of consistent learn teaching. So basically, patience is, it's the key to everything. Just patience with yourself. It's not patient with other people. It's with yourself. You are the one creating the universe. You are the one creating your reality. So, it is really important to maintain some sort of patience for this to work in your favor, because you need to observe. And they say, I love how they say the catalyst is intense upon your plane. You have a very intense use of catalyst here. Catalyst here, Ra says that is 100 times as powerful as 4th, 5th, and 6th density. Catalyst in other densities is nothing compared to what we feel here, because of the degree of illusion of separation that exists between us. It's still funny to me, as deep as I am into the law of one now, to know that we're still separated. We still feel separated by stupid things like physical features or language. And it's the mental separation. It's not the separation that I don't speak Chinese, so I feel separated. No, it's just that, oh, you're Chinese. You're not you speak Chinese. I can't. The language barrier. Who cares about the language barrier? You have signal. You just communicate, and you even feel better. Anyhow, point is that we are very divided still, and that is huge catalyst for us. So it's very intense. So in any case, we went over the hour. Of course, I knew this was going to happen, and I was hoping to include this last question 10. So important, but I'm going to leave it to the next video, and I may go over the hour and a half possibly on that one. So thank you so much for watching this, but that's my punchline for the ending. Conclusions, actually. Conclusions here. Oh my god, I have to summarize so much. So the most important thing that we get from this first part is to know that the dynamics, I think that's a better word than mechanism, the dynamics of our reality, of our existence here, the reason why you're here is to experience the world, to experience life, I'm not going to say enjoy life, even though that's part of it, but once you accept your life, then you enjoy it. But first is to experience it and to see what's telling you. This is through the work of Catalyst. Catalyst is there to provide information to you, to provide a reflection of who you are. The purpose is always to become unswayed. And for that, we have the emotions. The emotions are the tools, the triggers that you have to work with so you can channel the energy through you. And this is not a willing channeling that you do. It's just that by you understanding with love, see, the key thing here is love. Again, you will find with the balancing exercises, again, balancing just means finding the opposite of what you're feeling, because you will go to an extreme. This is why the pursuit of happiness in the United States, whoever said that, ought to be, I don't know. I'm not going to say anything. But see, it was bad because the pursuit of happiness is the reason why people are not happy. You're pursuing something that you already have, but you're unwilling to discover or uncover. So, people get fixated with like, oh, this makes me happy, so I want to stay with this, and they don't want to see the other side, right? That happens to a lot of us. We don't want to see the opposite. But when we see the opposite, and we actually experience the opposite, could be mentally. This is why Ra also said in previous sessions, I think we haven't gotten to that, I don't know if they said it in previous sessions, but they said, if you can't experience it physically or in reality, experience it in your mind. It works the same way because you're using it in your mind. It's the same thing. The balancing exercise is to experience it in your mind, to experience that other side. That might have been said in session 5 with the balancing exercise, I believe. Anyhow, that's the purpose of it. You balancing every experience, everything that you feel that is intense, balance it with the other one, and you're always going to find love in between, because that's what binds them. Love is the binding agent of everything. The yin yang, what do you think binds them? Attraction. The attraction is love. Attraction is love. Love is in everything. Love is literally in everything. Love not as the romantic love that we know here in our modern society, but love as an attraction that binds everything. I believe it was Empedocles who said that love was, this force that would get everything together, and he had like 4 stages of the creation, which was phenomenal. Hate was the divisive principle, which divided things. And he thought that back then, which is kind of accurate actually, back then we were at the peak of the divisiveness, and that eventually this cycle would bring love again, which is happening now. Empedocles was really enlightened to me. I know there's a lot to talk about Heraclitus and Thales, but Empedocles, Greek philosopher, I think his model was fantastic. I had a whole video about Empedocles in my channel, so if you're interested, go watch it. So in any case, love is there, and that's my best conclusion. Let me tell you something. I I could probably talk about this topic for hours. So this is, I'm sorry I cannot, do honor to it, but it's already over an hour and 20, and I still have to record the Spanish version of this. So I'm going to go right into that. And now I can really say thank you so much for watching. Love is in everything. Love is in this attraction that you have to me and I have to you, because I wouldn't be doing this if you weren't out there, and you're watching this because you have an attraction to this sort of information that is flowing through this channel here. So that's why I say I love you, you love me. That's just how it works. So because of that, I thank you, and I'll see you in part 2 of session 42.